What's up? This is Devin Coach. Thanks again for tuning into the channel. Today we have a book review. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to actually combine two books. Typically, I'm going to just use one, but today they're pretty related, so my first book review, I'm going to combine both. First, I'm going to start off with Relentless, From Good to Great to Unstoppable by Tim S. Grover, and also The Mindful Athlete, Secrets to Pure Performance by George Mumford. And the reason why I'm combining these books is they're both actually based on sports. They're written by sports trainers who train top athletes to get to the elite levels of performance. Both of them have reviews by Kobe Bryant, so 5-time champion. So it's good stuff, very top level athletes. So I'll just start with the Relentless. And this book was mostly about how to grab that relentless spirit that a lot of top athletes have. And it talks about getting into the zone, and he uses like kind of codified words. And for good, great, and unstoppable, it's cooler. For good, for great, it's the closer, and for unstoppable or relentless, they're called cleaners. And basically, the book is just how to harness that spirit. And the main thing is that the cleaner, that's different from the cooler and the closer, is they're going to do whatever is possible to get the result. The cooler is just kind of okay with just having the talent and showing it sometimes. The closer really tries his best or her best to do everything possible, plan and just do it. The cleaner just gets it done no matter what. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's not a lot of thinking. And actually, the first chapter, or one of the first chapters, is don't think. And I'm just going to kind of combine a lot of the chapters and just summarize it. So a big topic is getting into the zone. And that is when you're not thinking, things are just flowing, and you're just going at it, and you're able to shut everything out. That's what the relentless person can do. And he never really goes into full detail about it. He kind of alludes to it. So I'm going to kind of go out on a whim and just assume that he doesn't, I don't think that you just are born a cleaner. You're not born unstoppable. You might have certain traits and beliefs that make you more inclined to become a cleaner, but it's kind of built. So you might start as a cooler, develop into the closer, and then become the cleaner. And the cleaner is able to shut everything out. And another big concept of that was that the cleaner, they don't really, like, you don't have to love the work you do, like, but they just love the results. They're willing to do whatever it takes. And he talks about people coming back from crazy injuries, crazy setbacks, and that it really takes a lot of mental fortitude and a confidence and belief in yourself to get things done. And I think they're very applicable to real life, even though he's using athletes. Because in real life, you really have to be relentless. You're going to get hit with a brick. You're going to encounter setbacks, but are you willing to accept a setback as a failure, or do you just realize that there's many ways to get to your goal? That's another chapter, actually. And the relentless person, they're really never thinking, oh, I'm set back, oh, I'm losing. I'm always winning, I'm always playing to win, and I'm always going to do whatever it's necessary to get the result, because I'm addicted to the results and the success. And that the relentless person almost has to have a maniacal effort, a maniacal mindset, a maniacal drive. And he calls this the dark side. And society tries to tame this, tries to make you a polite and nice person, but the relentless, the cleaner, is able to harness it in whatever they're doing, whether it be a job, entrepreneurial venture, a sport, and is able to harness this into something that they're going to be unstoppable. There's no niceness. It's like, I'm getting the result, and that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no other option. It's kind of like the saying, failure is not an option. So if something that happened that other people would be like, oh, I'm a failure. Say you're trying to start a new business, and which I've done, and it fell flat on its face. Some people would be like, oh, you failed at the business, but did you fail because really, and he uses this exact kind of, not verbatim, but idea, it's like, really what people say is like, oh, you failed at the business. They're saying that I would feel like a failure if that happened to me. But if you take what you learned and start a new venture, and even if that fails, and then you take that and start a new one, did you really fail if eventually you succeed? If it's not over until you win, it's not over until you get the result. And that's kind of what this book harness is, just not overthinking it, just really just keep going, keep grinding, and doing whatever it takes necessary to make things happen. And really where these books connect, because they're actually kind of opposing philosophies, you have to have a bit of a negative capability to really absorb both. And negative capability, if you don't know, is just the ability to hold two opposing views at the same time and not commit. Like, for a simple, I mean, I'm not trying to get into religious debate or anything, but some people believe in God, some people don't believe in God. And are you able to hold both of those thoughts in your head, that they both could be valid? They both can be strengths to both sides. And that's basically what negative capability is. Because Tim Grover, his biggest philosophy is that, it's really the drive, it's working hard, being relentless, putting the pedal to the metal, so to speak, and just really, when the rubber meets the road, you're really just like driving. You put in the extra work that nobody else is going to put in. You do everything. You do so much that when you succeed, like it's lonely, because nobody could even understand the amount of effort you put in to be where you're at, and to have that in many facets of life. Not every facet of life, because he does explain that there's certain facets where that isn't, like relationships, maybe that's not the greatest thing to have. But when it comes to a sport, when it comes to business, when it comes to achieving your goals, having that relentless spirit that, I'm going to get the result, is very important. So that's really why I enjoyed this book. I finished it actually today. The Mindful Athlete I finished like a month ago. Actually, just from my honest opinion, I like this book better. He really talks about mindfulness. And where these books are connected is that they really talk a lot about knowing yourself and knowing who you are. And the relentless aspect, it's like knowing who you are and just pounding it, to just working it to get it better. And the Mindful Athlete, it's more about staying in the zone. He just focuses on the zone. And this is, again, when everything's flowing, things are coming naturally. It's an effortless, it's like a natural unnaturalness. Because you have the skills that you've attained, but you're not forcing the skills. You're not thinking about it. It's second nature. And there's not as many chapters in this, so I'll just kind of go one by one. The first chapter is all about the zone, which I kind of just explained. And then the second chapter it's called Mindfulness, the Eye of the Hurricane. And if you think about a hurricane, on the outsides are all chaos. And if you use this metaphor for your brain, so all these random thoughts, and he talks a lot about basketball, but you can put it in anything, that you have all these crazy thoughts going around your head all the time. But when you think about a hurricane, the middle is actually like the calmest point. So yeah, all the skills, all the things all your insecurities and fears, they're all on the outside. They're all spinning around in that hurricane. But where you want to be is in that center, that calmness, where you can make decisions. You can see what's going on around you and keep moving within that, to be at a position where you can make the best decisions without being clouded by the chaos on the outside. And if you always think about your mind in that way, you want to always be in that hurricane. If somebody says something to you, whether in a sport or maybe a job or anything, say they give you like a kind of like a jab, and if it really is affecting you, you're not in that mindfulness area, because you're letting it hit you. You're standing on the outside. Now your actions are dictated by the things happening around you. But if you're in the mindfulness area in the center, you're able to see, oh, maybe they have an insecurity, maybe they're intimidated by you, maybe they're scared of you, or maybe it's just something you should just forget. It has nothing to do. You should just stay focused on what you're doing. But like when you're in that eye of the hurricane, you're in the best spot because it's the calm. It's the calm and not the storm. The second one is concentration. Is that you want to be intensely focused and aware of what you're doing, aware of like how you're moving, the things that are happening. They use a lot of sports references, so I'll just jump on that. Like in basketball, you want to be aware of the way your wrist is moving with the shot, aware of how you're standing, aware of your surroundings, the other people. If you're starting a business, you're aware of the different benchmarks, what the average company is making, what a person starting out, what expectations they have, what you're doing, the action steps that you're taking. You need to be intensely aware. And then he moves on to insight. You need to know yourself. You need to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, where you need to improve, where you maybe need to improve, but that's where you're better off at. Maybe you should double down in that area because you have a penchant, a high degree of just natural expertise or gained skill in an area. And then the next part, which is actually very like interesting because it's kind of right here. You got to have that negative capability. It's called right effort, and that's where you have to forget yourself. It's called forget thyself. And what that's all about is in the context of like basketball, which is like a sport. It's really easy and tangible. It's like you can know your skills, but if you're thinking, "Oh, I have a great shot. I need to shoot. I need to shoot," it's not going to happen in the right flow. You're going to be forcing it. You need to almost forget who you are and just let it come out naturally. It's that natural unnaturalness I'm talking about. It's you need to, and that's kind of a Bruce Lee quote. I'm not going to steal that. It's where you've gained the skills, so that's the unnaturalness. That's the learned effort, but you're letting it naturally express itself. You're not forcing the expression of your skill, because when you start forcing, that's when you go back. If you go back to the chapter on mindfulness, you're moving in the storm. You're thinking too much about what happened before. You're thinking too much about all the stuff around you, and you're not making decisions in that center, the eye of the hurricane. When you forget yourself, you're just moving with what's happening. If the storm moves to the left, you're still in the eye, and you're going to move to the left and stay in the eye and make the decision there. You're just way more adaptable. You're more like water, and there's a great metaphor with water. It's like if you really try to grab water, like if you just dip your hand in a lake and just try to grab it and force it, it's like it'll just seep right through your fingers. But if you gently cup your hands and grab it, you can actually experience the water and hold the water. And it's because you just kind of naturally, effortlessly lifted it up. And that's where you need to be when you're being mindful. And this is applicable to all aspects of life. Again, when you're in business, you can't just force things to happen. There's a patience in letting things happen in the right timing. And the last chapter he has is on trust. And he talks about this as the space between thoughts. And that might sound like kind of mumbo jumbo, but it's really like if you think about even when you breathe, when you take a breath, there's a tiny space between your in breath and your out breath, and that is kind of like the calmest area. And the same with your thoughts. Your thoughts are moving a mile a minute, and the space between them is actually where you always want to be, because that's where you're the calmest. There's no anxiety because there's no thought like pushing up all these physiological responses. And it's the space between thoughts and just having the trust that things are going to work out. As long as I stay there, I'm true to who I am, I know who I am, I'm not forcing who I am, I'm mindful because I'm in the eye of the hurricane and obviously in the best decision making spot I can be. I'm concentrated, I know what's happening around me, but I'm not overly focused on it, but I'm very focused on the matter at hand. I trust that I'm going to be able to adapt to any situation. Things are going to happen. I'm going to have the patience. I'm going to trust the process. I'm making the right moves. And even if I make a mistake, I can stay in that eye, readjust. I know what I'm good at. I'm not gonna overly force what I'm good at. I'm gonna let it happen in its good time. I'm gonna be very concentrated on figuring out, and that's where the concentration. Okay, maybe I let that shot go to the left, or maybe in ping pong I hit it too hard. I'm not gonna beat myself up about it. I know I have a good forehand. I I know I'm not gonna force a forehand shot when it's a backhand shot, but the next time that forehand comes, I understand. I trust that I'm gonna adapt. I'm not gonna overthink it, and I'm not gonna be thinking I'm waiting for the forehand. I'm waiting for the forehand. It's like I'm just gonna be in that space between the thoughts that when it comes, I'm just gonna hit it with the top spin. Boom. You score the shot. Game point. About to win ping pong. I'm not that good at ping pong. I'm alright, but that's really his point. So, and when you combine both of these together, it really gives you a real strong advantage, I feel like, because you'll have that relentless spirit to keep driving, 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 which to me sometimes will make you overthink things. Even though he talks about not thinking, but George Mumford kind of really focuses on the mindfulness, the mind, and just kind of calming it down. And Tim Grover kind of speeds it up to work harder. And when you can kind of harness and balance it, it's like you kind of have the best of both worlds. And that's why I combine the books, also because they're both sports books. But they're both great books. I would recommend to read them. The George Mumford one is more of my style because I already think that I'm a wrestler at heart. That's the sport I did in high school, and I really liked it. And you got to have that relentless spirit to be good at it. So I feel like I had that. This was kind of more of a reminder, which George Mumford's was too, because I understand to be mindful. But it was like that was the one that was really speaking to me. That was like, all right, just calm down. Take it easy. You need just adjust and then just trust. Just made that up now. Rhyme. It's pretty cool. But yeah, so these are the two books for today. Once again, Relentless, From Good to Great to Unstoppable by Tim S. Grover. Great book. And The Mindful Athlete, Secrets to Pure Performance, George Mumford. You could grab both of these on Amazon. I'm probably going to put the link to the in the description to where you can get them. I mean, even if I don't, they're fairly easy to find. I found them pretty quick once I heard about them. And they're great reads. Next time I do a book review, it'll probably just be one book. But today I did two. It's the first one. And that's all I really have for today. If you enjoyed the content, I would ask that you please just click the subscribe button, share it to your friends, and until next time, thank you.